So I wanted to check in and do a little bit of breaking down of the Stephanie Jones article that we know came out from the Business Insider. There's been a lot of stuff coming out about Stephanie Jones lately, especially in regards to the depositions and recent additions to the docket. And I just wanted to revisit the article that came out because, again, I'm trying to get things grounded in my mind in terms of the timeline and how things unfolded. It's one thing to read it as things came out, but now that we are able to step back and revisit how everything unfolded all the way up to this point, it's actually been really helpful to do that and sort through the information. Now, one of the things is that this article, in my mind, for some reason, I was attaching this article to being published in July of 2024. Now, when we actually click into the article, I am realizing I was off on when this was posted. Oops, because this was actually posted on August 15th. It wasn't posted in July like my brain thought it was posted. So this changes a little bit in my memory because for some reason I was thinking this was a catalyst, that this was a part of the chain reaction that started the blow up. It still fits that, just not at the same point that I thought it was originally, because I thought it was the Jennifer Abel situation unraveling in July. So Jennifer Abel letting her know that she was going to be leaving Jones Works. And then between that point and the beginning of the articles, I thought it fell somewhere in that window. Now it's after that window. However, it still does fit the pattern that potentially this article may, this also makes me wonder even more. Was this not only a self-directed hit piece in terms of Blake Lively and the articles that were coming out in August, but now I have to wonder, are Stephanie Jones' hands dirtier than we thought? And was Stephanie Jones somewhat behind constructing the escalation out of Blake even more? I say that question out loud because of what we're going to visit in this article. So we know now that this came out in August of 2024. We know that Jennifer Abel announced that she was going to be leaving Jones Works in July. And then we also know that just prior to this date is when the Page Six articles started to come out. I want to say August 6th was one of the first ones, and definitely for sure August 9th is when at least two of those Page Six articles were released. And so August 15th is right before the Daily Mail. Now, the reason why I'm questioning if Stephanie Jones' hands are dirtier than we believe at this point, it's because there are some patterns that start to come out of this article. And it's not just the patterns of behavior in terms of what this article is talking about, which the weirder part about this is that this article almost comes from the standpoint of, we don't know, well, first of all, we don't know who it is that is making some of these claims. I think the speculation is that this was potentially a former employee. They do cite in here that I believe the former employee left in July. So there was a little bit of a exodus from Jones Works. Either exodus or Jones was getting rid of people in July, and potentially that's what spurred Abel to decide, I'm out. I can't work in an environment that's like this. And so she may have put in her notice because of the escalating issues that were happening within Jones Works. But what stands out within this article in terms of the patterns of behavior, because that's what I've been talking about in that over 300 part playlist on my other platform, is that there is a definite pattern of behavior coming out of Blake Lively and also out of the Lively camp, which would include Stephanie Jones. The most notable thing is the narrative control as the job. So there's threats and pressure towards journalists because if they don't give in and if they essentially make Stephanie Jones mad, then they'd potentially lose access. So they had to play a part in pleasing her and doing what she wants in order to keep that access open. The pattern that's developing here is that when they talk about an article, they do refer to page 6. So what happened is there was a change in the crew that was working on a production. So there was a change in the crew that was working on a production. And when some of those crew members left, in response to that, Jones essentially published a story. The story that was released the next day was released through page 6. And I have previously theorized that the August articles that Blake is so upset about and claims is a part of the beginning of the PR smear campaign. I was looking at, because when I was doing the triple checking, if you don't know, over on my platform, I basically did a series where I was talking about how I was triple checking the information that I was pursuing. And so I was going through the dockets, going through actions that were happening on the case, and then I went backwards in time, and then I cross-referenced it with the archive that's essentially the Reddit threads so that we could see what was happening in real time, and then also aligned them with the news headlines and trying to reconstruct the timeline to double check, what actually happened in what order and how does that change what we know now based off of what we read then. And if we look back in hindsight, what now becomes more obvious and what stands out even more now, given that we have so much more information to look through the lens of what was happening at the time. And when I did that, when I was looking at the headlines specifically, a lot of the headlines that were coming out before, because the complaint, even Baldoni's documents, cite the Daily Mail article on August 16th as being the catalyst that started everything. So when I was looking for the August 2024 headlines, I was trying to figure out, was it specifically that the August 16th headline changed the arc and changed the tone of all of the other headlines? And what I found was that no, there were already articles coming out in the very first couple of weeks of August. So before 8/16, essentially between the 6th and the 12th, I want to say are the dates that I was looking at specifically. There were several different headlines that were coming out that were talking about the same things that were in the August 16th article, which is why I questioned on that post, why are we citing the 8/16 article as the catalyst when there are articles from page 6 that predate that? And then the bigger reason why I was like, I think this was a self-directed hit piece, in my opinion, potentially, is because the photos that were used in those page 6 articles were from Backgrid. And what we know about Backgrid is usually that the celebrities themselves will notify Backgrid and the photographers that Backgrid uses that, hey, they're going to be here at this time, etc. So they're essentially prearranged, if you will. The parties know that the photographers are going to be there, and it's not usually an organic type of situation when Backgrid photos are used. And so I was thinking, that's interesting that we're saying that Daily Mail is what kicked it all off when we can see that Backgrid and page 6 were used. They were publishing things before that Daily Mail article. So why are they trying to identify Daily Mail as the problem? We see page 6 echoed in this article, and that it was Stephanie Jones who went to page 6 and had that article published in response to an issue that she had with people involved with a client that she was working for. Now, the other thing is a pattern of behavior that comes out of this article is the fear culture. People are terrified to speak, even fear entrapment, which is not a normal situation to experience in a workplace. It's reputation enforcement when somebody is creating an environment where you have to walk on eggshells just to exist and just to remain in good favor. And this kind of mirrors like a handler's type of ecosystem when people learn, and it doesn't even have to be an outright explicit learning. They just understand that retaliation for speaking can create a massive problem in the workplace, social function, etc. They learn to go silent, and they learn to kind of launder their concerns through third parties. They don't want to talk directly to a person, so they talk to somebody else to confirm or figure out and sort out the issues that they're having, and then coordinate amongst each other behind the scenes. And then there's also even patterns of weaponized accountability language and the story, the refusal. There is this odd moment in this article where they talk about how Stephanie Jones turned a moment into her claiming that the person who wasn't willing to listen to her, that it was an act of racism. And they even clarify in this article that, the other artists had been played, other artists of color had been played, and that the DJ themselves was a person of color. It's a very strange way to write this article, and I have to question a few things, like if this was potentially a self-directed hit piece or where this article came from, because I don't know why in August, and specifically August 15th, that date alone is what makes it fishy to me and what makes me think or believe that this was a part of a self-directed hit piece in order to construct the escalation within the Lively camp. Because was this article published the way that it was to escalate in the mind of Blake Lively, like, we are under attack, we are under threat. And if they can publish this article about Stephanie Jones, oh my gosh, what are they going to publish about me? To kind of help kick off this entire escalation that gets us into the CRD complaint, etc. Now, the other reason why I question this is because it's kind of like there's a pattern of behavior, one, that's happening, but then there is also a pattern of projection. And it seems to be that Stephanie Jones and Blake Lively do this similar pattern of behavior where they fear in others the things that they are actually doing themselves, which ends up looking like every accusation becomes an admission. So in this article, it even says, accused him of manipulating the email chain by deleting specific exchanges. Doesn't that sound like it could be directly taken from the accounts of what's happening in the Lively Wayfarer case? And this paragraph is not talking about the Lively Wayfarer case. It is talking about something that happened surrounding Stephanie Jones' own clients and the people surrounding them. So I have a lot of questions after reading this article, and I think I'm going to hold it here and I'm going to ask the question, do you see other patterns of behavior that come out of this article? If you don't know where it is, it's Business Insider, and it is the article titled "Who's Afraid of Stephanie Jones?" Just look at the date, look at some of the wording, and think of the patterns of behavior that are being described in this article, and let me know, do you see the same or similar things that I'm seeing in this? Because something smells fishy to me. Let me know if you have more questions and where you want to go from here. I just wanted to revisit the topic of Stephanie Jones just because there's so much coming out about her right now, and I wanted to get grounded in the history of information that we have on her.